Hi, and welcome to my channel, Shades of Sage, where I share all things motherhood. My name is Taishima. I'm a doula and mama of 4, and today I'm going to be talking about how to deal with birth trauma or birth sadness. So these are just some tips and things that have helped me. If you have also experienced a traumatic birth or have some lingering birth sadness over the outcome or maybe over the events of your birth, hopefully some of these tips can help you as well. So if you're new to my channel, you may not know, but my first birth was an induction, a failed induction, and it ended up leading to an emergency C-section. So if you're interested in that story, I have my birth stories on this channel. That was my first birth with my daughter Saya, and that was a very traumatic birth, very traumatic. And even when I tell this story or when I think about it, it still makes me upset. Like, it still makes me cry. So I have experienced a traumatic birth, and it's just one of those things that, I don't know, it just stays with you forever. So I definitely understand if you're also one of those moms who have experienced a traumatic birth. And that's one of the things that I love about being a doula, is because hopefully with our help as doulas, women won't experience these traumatic births that other people have had. Now, some traumatic births can come just from, no fault of your own. It's just the way that labor happened for you. And then, of course, in other cases, a traumatic birth could be due to provider care or due to negligence or things like that. So it really does depend on the reasonings why your birth is traumatic for you. So if it's something as far as like the way you were treated, or maybe your needs weren't being met and certain things happened that contributed to you having a negative outcome, if it's one of those cases where it was on the provider's end, then you can always, report whoever you need to report, or write a written statement saying, what you didn't like or why things happened or the things that you were displeased with, and, bring it to attention of the medical staff, because not all the time people know that they made us feel a certain way or certain things happened that we didn't like, or, just whatever the case may be. You always can make a record of it, and I definitely encourage you to, if it was, like I said, on the provider's end or the nurse's end, or whoever was doing your treatment or care in the hospital. If you feel like maybe they just weren't on page with your goals or maybe your birth plan, definitely, make sure that that is known. So hopefully in the future, other women won't have to suffer or go through the same things that you suffered. So for me, my traumatic birth really just had to do with my body kind of not tolerating labor well, and then with me having preeclampsia. So it just led to this whole spiral of things and led to me having an emergency C-section and almost dying from that. So it was really traumatic. But one of the things that really helped me with processing those emotions and feelings is knowing that it was through no fault of my own. Like preeclampsia is not something that you can really control. They still really don't even know what causes preeclampsia. There's certain things that are risk factors for preeclampsia, but I had no history of it. It was my first pregnancy. My family, as far as I know, didn't have a history of it. So when I was diagnosed with it, we all were in shock. So we all were unprepared, and it just was one of those things that no one could control. I was just the luck of the draw, that went through that experience. So one of the reasons why it was traumatic is just because it was so unexpected. So that kind of helps me with that, just knowing that there's nothing I could have done differently that would have caused me not to have preeclampsia or not to have the emergency C-section. Like, we did everything we could, me, my support people, my providers, and just the whole medical staff. We did what we could, and at the very end, the emergency C-section was very necessary because things were not looking good for me and for my baby. So that helps me a little bit. I don't know if that will help you a little bit, just knowing that there's nothing that you could have done or not done to change the outcome of your birth. So going along with that, maybe something that you may find helpful is just writing down your birth story. So I was a big journaler back in the day, so I think I wrote down probably Saya's and Matthias's birth, and that really helped me process my emotions, because it was all right there, in black and white. Like, I could look at it, I could see, yes, this is what happened, this is what I may have wanted to happen, but it didn't. But everything all worked out, so that helps me also as well. But writing it down instead of just thinking about it over and over and over again in your mind may help you. And then also maybe writing you down a list of the things that you're really grateful for or happy for that happened in your birth or during the course of your birth, that even though it was a traumatic, you're glad that certain things happened. Like for me with Saya, I'm glad that I had a really good support team. Like, I'm glad that, my doctors and everyone listened to me. Like, it wasn't one of those situations where I was complaining about something and no one was listening to me and things just spiraled out of control. So that's not my experience, but that may be some of your experiences. So for me, it was just really being listened to, really being proactive, and we tried everything, and when all else failed, that's what we had to do, was the emergency C-section. But I'm still grateful for the emergency C-section, so that helps me a lot with that situation. So maybe write you down a list of things that did go right during the course of your birth, or maybe postpartum. Like, what do you feel like were things that happened that you are proud of, or that really helped you in the moment, instead of like focusing on all the negative things that happened that you didn't want, or the things that went wrong. And then also something else that may help you is seeking therapy, or maybe even talking to your birth team after the birth. So a lot of times in birth we forget certain things, and sometimes it's just so emotionally charged. We remember all the emotions, but we may not remember all the actual logical things that went on, or the actual things, events, or the course of events that happened during birth. So it may help you to sit down with your whoever delivered your baby, or your birth team, the medical team, and say, you know, walk me through my birth. What happened here? Why did this happen? Why did it end up this way? Why wasn't I listened to? You know, certain things like that. They may help you to be able to process it that way, so that, you know, when you're level-headed and not in that emotional space, which is birth, because it is a lot, maybe that can help you to better understand why things turned out the way they did, or why certain things took place. And even though that may not have been the outcome that you wanted, it may help you to understand certain things. So that may help you. And then of course you can always seek therapy, you know, individually on your own as well, because sometimes it's just good to talk to other people and get those emotions out there, like I said, instead of just having them replay and repeat in your mind. And so when dealing with birth sadness, for me, I had a lot of sadness over my last birth. Now that was not an emergency C-section, but it did still lead to a C-section. So there was some sadness involved, just because I had not planned on it being a C-section again, but it still was necessary. But it wasn't an emergency situation, so it wasn't a traumatic birth, it just was unexpected again. And so one of the things that really helps me with like birth sadness is just really being grateful that we all still made it through the experience. Like, we all still made it through the births. You know, I'm fine, my babies are fine, they all came home healthy and happy and well. So I just really reflect on that, just really being grateful that, you know, I'm alive, my kids are alive, and I got to take them home, because that's not something that I take for granted, because not every mom gets to do that. Some moms unfortunately suffer losses, or even the loss of themselves, and then their family has to go home without mom, and then there's a baby, or, you know, both may pass. And I know that may be really sensitive, so if you've experienced that and, you know, you can't hear this, then definitely click off, that's okay. But these things do happen, and so I do remind myself of that, you know, we did make it. Like, my first, I said, it was really traumatic, and it definitely could have went another way really fast. So I always just really remind myself that not everybody gets that opportunity where they get to take their baby home, or where, you know, they get to go home. And yes, I did have a C-section and had to recover, and that is a whole big physical part of postpartum as well. But at least we all did make it home safely, and my children still have their mom. And so at the end of the day, even though things didn't go the way I wanted in all the births, and like I said, there is no perfect birth. Like, you may get everything, and it may be just that one thing that didn't go right, and sometimes it may be a little bit easy to dwell on that one thing that didn't go right. That's like my biggest tip, is just practicing gratitude and knowing that everyone is safe and healthy and well. And yes, things may not have gone according to my birth plans, but that's okay, because the outcome is, you know, a healthy baby and a healthy mom, and that is what I have 4 times over. So I'm definitely grateful for that, and I thank God for that all the time. So it's okay if you've experienced birth sadness, or if you've experienced birth grief. Like, I'm not making this video to make you feel bad, or to tell you that you shouldn't be sad about how your birth turned out, or, you know, the things that may have happened during your birth. I'm just hoping that some of these things that work for me, some of the tips that I mentioned in this video that helped me to cope with my births, will help you to cope with yours also as well. And hopefully this video validated your feelings, because even though we're grateful for our children, or we may be grateful, you know, that they're healthy and they're well, it's okay if we also feel upset as well. And if you have another child or children, I'm praying that you get the beautiful birth of your dreams for your next experience. So that's all that I have for you today. I hope that it was helpful for those who are also dealing with some birth grief or birth sadness, for whatever the reasons may have been that you feel that way about your birth. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Remember to let your story be your power, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.